Hi, it's Bobby. Welcome to day number 5. So glad you're along on this journey. And if you are joining us kind of already in progress, if this is the first or second video that you've seen, it's useful to start at the beginning. There's some foundational things that I'm covering in the beginning, and I think it'll make a lot more sense. It'll give you a context. I've had several people who had joined us on yesterday or the day before and then went back and very quickly said, wow, okay, now I get what you're saying. And so it's useful. And there is a YouTube playlist of this with every one of these in order. So if you want to review, or if you want to go back and re-review, or if you're starting in the middle and want to go back and start at the beginning, you've got the ability to do that as well. And today we're going to be talking about what are our feelings really telling us. And I want to reiterate what I've been saying every step of the way that please do not believe anything that I'm telling you in these videos. Rather, explore for yourself, go within, verify what I'm telling you. Hopefully, what I'm telling you sounds, at the very least, possible, if not probable, believable to a degree, but please don't take my word for it. I am sharing with you my experience and I'm sharing with you my truth, but this is all about getting the idea, the concept that we are spiritual beings having a human experience as our felt experience, as our real life reality, not some cool, pithy bumper sticker that sounds cool at the ashram or the yoga studio, but rather something that is actually your felt experience. But so let's go back in and dive back into that and just see what it is that you're seeing, feel what it is that you're feeling, and looking to see what is it that those feelings are telling you. I told you, I think it was yesterday, I was recording the video that was released yesterday, and my poor little dog Daisy was whining. She needed something. I couldn't figure out what she needed. Turned out what she needed was she just wanted to go to bed and she wanted me to come with her. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. And, she was starting to whine, and she would whine and I would pause and I would go check on her and I would think, oh, that's okay. I can just cut that out later, post-production editing, take it out of there. So I would pick up where I left off again and she'd whine and bark again. And then she got to the point where she was whining incessantly, kind of the way wisdom does for us if we're not getting the message, first of all. It just keeps bringing it. And that's what Daisy did for me. And I had some thinking going on around that. My little inner critic started to get involved in the process. And my inner critic is not involved in most of these recordings at all. I get into flow, I get into the zone, and I am completely mindful, meaning that mind is absorbed in the moment with what I'm doing here in creating these videos for you. But Daisy starts yapping a little bit, and inner critic says, "Up, you're going to have to edit that out." And inner critic says, "No problem, you can edit that out." She whines again. Inner critic is talking more and more. All of a sudden, now I'm slipping back into the illusion that I'm not spirit having a human experience. I'm little egoic Bobby Cobb who's creating these videos to share with the world. And little egoic Bobby Cobb wants these videos to be perfect. And little egoic Bobby Cobb wants validation, wants feedback saying, oh, it's wonderful. And I do like that. So those of you who have shared those with me, keep them coming. It's nice to know that the work that I'm doing here is landing thoughtfully, but the sacred part, the spirit that is creating this is just manifesting God's infinite love, bringing the formless into form. There's a line from a poem by a poet named Hafez. He was a Sufi poet, I think in the 13th or 14th century, quite some time ago. And this line in his poem that's often been taken out and just quoted as a single line is, I am the hole in the flute that God's breath moves through. Listen to my music. And if you think about that, that is a very good description of living life in flow. Many people have had the experience where they sat down to write a poem or a piece of music or to work on a particular project, and they got totally absorbed in the moment. And like some of those awe-inspiring moments, time stood still. They weren't aware of time. Paul McCartney of the Beatles said that he wrote Let It Be in about 10 minutes, that he woke up from a dream, dreaming of his mother, whose name was Mary. And his mother, Mary, used to tell him when he was a little boy, Paul, just let it be. And he wrote that song, Whisper Words of Wisdom, let it be, let it be. 10 minutes. He didn't think of that. That was inspiration flowing through him. Music with the Eagles is the same. Don Henley and Glenn Frey. The very first day they met, they sat down to see about writing some music, and they wrote the Eagles hits Tequila Sunrise and Take It Easy. And they did it in a couple of hours. And they looked at each other and said, I think this partnership might have some legs. That's in flow. But that night I wasn't in flow. I started in flow, and my inner critic kept pestering me and took me out. And as my inner critic took me out, where I was on that internal scale from 1 to 99, amping up, amping up, amping up. And I would pause and I would see if Daisy needed to go out. She didn't need to go out. I would see if she needed another blanket. She didn't need another blanket. I would see if she was hungry. She wasn't hungry. And each evolution of that, amping up, amping up, amping up. Nothing on the outside had changed. I was still sitting in the same studio, still doing the same recording. Everything was pretty much still the same, except the weather inside of the atmosphere was changing. And at one point, she just got incessant. Come on, Daddy, let's go to bed. I want to snuggle. I'm tired. It's late. I'm cold. And I lost it. And I mentioned that, I think, in yesterday's video. And I just lost it. And very quickly after I lost it, I found the humor in that moment. That here I am creating a video program on mindfulness. And in that moment, I was the exact opposite of mindfulness. But, she's just a dog. And she whines a lot. She's old, she's 14, she's kind of in hospice. She's not going to be around too much longer. And I spend a lot of my time just making sure the rest of her stay on this plane is as wonderful as it can be. And the vast majority of the time, I'm so patient, she couldn't possibly rile me. And when I lost it, she looked at me like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And in the recording, eventually got back in track, got back in flow. And when I was doing that recording, I said, if it would happen again, it would probably crack me up. It cracked me up eventually. Then, as I realized, God, here I am doing this mindfulness. So I want to invite you to consider another shift. We've made a couple of shifts that have happened. We've talked about a couple of shifts anyway. That the shift of thinking that the Earth was at the center of the universe and the sun and all of the planets rotated around us, and the shift that people made during the time of the Black Plague in the 100 years or so after, when they finally recognized maybe it's not bad smells, maybe we don't need this pocket full of posies all the time as we're ringing around the rosy. Maybe instead what we ought to do is clean our shit up and get some of this toxin rotting food and flesh and human waste out of our ecology and out of our terrain. And perhaps then we may be able to re-embody our innate well-being that is a part of who we are. We talked about that shift that commuters make, as one day they're in a totally bliss state and the next day they're on the verge of road rage. That's just us going up and down that scale. So I want to invite you to consider that what your feelings are telling you has absolutely nothing to do with your circumstances. It has everything to do with how you are. One of the coaching programs that I have is known as immersion. And immersion is, I meet with a client 1 or 2 times a week, actually, as often as they want when they're in immersion. And we're doing intense work, and it's designed to make massive breakthroughs over a very, very short period of time. And my instruction to them is, if you're melting down, if you're stuck, if you're struggling, if you're feeling sad or depressed at any point, I want you to give me a call and I want to work through it. And the reason I started doing that has to do with my hypnosis training. One of my master's certifications that I got somewhere along the way, I had to do 50 cases that were documented, and I was traveling on business a lot. And one day I did a fear of flying hypnotic fast phobia cure on the plane in flight. And it was pretty damn cool. And suddenly I realized, wow, this is going to be an easy way to get to my 50. And so every time I would get on a flight, I would just tell the flight attendant, ask the flight attendant, hey, do we have any white knuckle flyers? And she would say yes, no, or I don't know, or whatever he or she would say. And I would say, well, if there's one, I'm a hypnotherapist and I have a fast phobia cure that works amazingly well. And I'd be happy to help anybody. And I got a lot of volunteers. Flight attendants do not like white knuckle flyers. And if there's somebody on the flight that's claiming he can make that problem go away, man, they are all ears. And so I did a lot of those. And I noticed I did 35. That was the most that I could do. I had to do 50 cases and I could do no more than 35 in any one particular set of protocols. And so I did the max that I could. And I had to follow up with them. I had to follow up 6 weeks and 6 months later to see how they were doing. And I was perfect. 35 out of 35 people never had another problem fear of flying. And I'm a really good hypnotherapist. That's not false modesty. I've studied it a lot. I've practiced it a lot. I lost count a long time ago how many cases that I've got. And I'm good, but I'm not that good. I'm not perfect. But in this one context, I was perfect, 35 for 35. And I thought about that for a little while. And I wondered, here's Daisy, just almost on cue, wanting to see if she can get me to jump up again. Lost my train of thought. So I thought about that, why I was so good in that particular case, and I realized it wasn't me. It didn't have anything to do with me because I was doing the same protocols I would do in the office with the client. The difference was them. They were flying. They were in mid-flight. So I would take them down. I would cure it. I would bring them up and say, "How you feeling?" And they said, "I'm feeling great." And I said, "You're flying. You're in a plane." "Yeah, I know. It's great." And inside, for them, there was a big difference between if they had been in my office. I'm going to have to pause just for a second. I'll be right back. Let me see what she needs. Grounded, centered. Be right back. And we're back. She just couldn't get down the stairs. She needed help getting down the stairs. Then I got her all settled in down here, came and sat. She gave me another bark. She was cold. She needed a blanket. She's 14 and a pit bull, that's really, really old for a pit bull. So all is good. So the difference was that they were in the plane and they knew it was going to work. Whereas in the office, they can think it's going to work. And there are some things that we can do under hypnosis to future pace the experience, but they never really know that they know until they actually get on the plane and see, which in this case it was. So in the immersion, people call me, and I'm happy for them to be calling me when they're melting down. And what I do with them is just take them through a process of bringing them present. And once had a client who got arrested, and he called me from jail, and he was only able to call me for 9 to 11 minutes at a time. Then they would cut it off to, if somebody else was in line in the prison, then it was their turn, and you had to go to the back of the line. And so he's calling me, and his name's not Richard, but I'm going to call him Richard for the purposes of this. He called me and he's crying and he says, "I've been arrested." And he goes through the whole story of what had happened. And he's freaking out. He's crying. He's not breathing well. And I just started in with him. "Richard, how are you doing? How are you doing right now?" And initially he's like, "Are you fucking nuts? I just got arrested. I'm not doing good at all. I'm in jail with a bunch of murderers and burglars and thieves and rapists. I'm freaking out." And I just kept bringing it back. "How are you doing right now? Right now?" And just bringing him back to the present and saying, "No, Richard, right now you're on the phone with me. You're talking to me. Breathe, breathe deeply, breathe deeply." And it took a while. It took several phone calls, actually, at 9 to 11 minutes apiece. Thankfully, there was no line, so he was just able to call me right back again. But somewhere around the second or third call, he started to settle back in to his true, authentic self. The crying went away, the anxiety went away, and innate tranquility was returned, at least for the moment. And he could breathe and he could talk, and we had his conversation, and I continued to coach him from prison in 9 to 11-minute segments. What I'm going to suggest to you, you've got the alternate nostril breathing. You've got your check-in. You've got seeing where you are on the timeline. I want you to play around and experiment to see for yourself what your feelings are actually telling you. Center yourself back in again. So if you're anxious that taxes are coming up and you've got to file your taxes and you haven't done that yet, or some big project is going on at school, or you're replaying something that happened in the past and that's freaking you out, as those feelings arise and as you check in and say, currently, man, I'm more amped up than I want to be. Just use the breathing if that's helpful. Take a nice deep breath as you're um, going in. Feel yourself breathing and just get centered and come back to this moment. Think of my guy in the prison. No, what are you doing right now? You're talking to me on the phone. Breathe. How are you doing? And notice that you can calm yourself down. And in a few days, I'm going to release to you a long video that I recorded earlier today. It's about 90 minutes long, so it's much longer than the majority of the session. I have it for you on an MP4 if you want to download it um, and listen to it on your phone. You can listen to it eyes open or closed. I do have a little cool little thing to go on there. And I want you to just begin to see how much in control of your internal experience you are. You have total control over your inner experience. And as you realize that, one of the things that you're going to notice is going to happen to you is when anxiety arises, it's not going to be something that gets you to amp up. It'll still happen, just as, it happened to me the other night. And I live and breathe this stuff all day, every day. And I still get sucked back into the illusion. I still fall victim of my previous conditioning back again and think that this is somehow about me, that Daisy's messing up this recording that I'm doing, which of course is silly because I can just re-record it again. And as we get back into a nice centered and grounded state, it's so much easier to do that. So play with that. Tomorrow, I've got a cool video ready to go for you that is going to show you this in action and will give you yet another experience of seeing it in action. And I think that you're going to find that that's a really, really cool video. So hopefully I'll remember when I post this, I'll put the link down in the thing to the YouTube channel. If you want to go back and review some of the things, they are on my public page. They're in our group, our Mindful Life. Please go in there and ask any questions that you've got, or look around and see some comments that other people have made, and just what's going on in there. All the videos are in there as well, but they're not quite organized as nicely as I would like them to be, and it's easier to do that on YouTube. So if I don't have that link in there, just shoot me a private message and say, hey, dude, you forgot the link. And I'll go and add it later. So give that a shot. More to come tomorrow. This is just going to keep getting deeper and deeper in the exploration. So I hope that you're making time to do a little bit of this every day and check in with yourself every day. These are little hinges that swing very, very big doors. I'm glad you're along for the journey. Ciao for now.